Oh wait, did you want me to have the music here or put it in post?
Just in post. Especially because
Uh,
you apparently decided
yeah.
to die right when we started. Don't die, Ben.
Oh my God. Oh, that was like sudden.
Don't die, Ben.
All right. Did you want to start over again?
No.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, then in that case,
It's
I'm
gonna your death is gonna be captured for all to hear.
glad. I'm
All
glad.
right.
All right. Well, in that case, let's go with it is a time of galactic civil war. It is a time for a new hope. It is a time for, well, actually, stuff that's way later than where this would actually fit. So let's go with Welcome to Azeroth Roundtable, episode 248. It's our holiday episode, and as is with tradition, we're going to talk about a Star Wars movie. This movie is the brand new Star Wars The Last Jedi. Now, I am not alone because there is another. Welcome, John. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Ben. We're here. It's my favorite of traditions. It's the new tradition that says, "Hey, you guys don't have to try to be creative on the holidays anymore. You can just talk about Star Wars and call it a day."
And oh my gosh, do we have a lot to talk about?
Yes, I we will see how long this goes because there is a lot to talk about with this movie.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, if you have not seen The Last Jedi, this is your spoiler warning. We are going to spoil the heck out of the show or out of the movie during
Yeah.
the show. Yeah, we're not even going to do a whole like, oh, before we get into spoil. No, this is your warning right now. Stop the show if you don't want to be spoiled.
It's all spoilers.
Yeah, and I'm not even gonna like be coy and be like, oh no, Darth Vader is Luke's father. No, this is gonna be shit like Leia almost died.
Yeah, I guess and
I
there we
don't.
go. We're
Yeah.
at the spoilers there. Um yeah, let's get into it. And I'm not normally necessarily a fan of just going beat by beat, but I feel like we almost kind of have to. But I mean, like right out the gate, let's just how are we feeling about this movie, Ben?
Right out the gate, I enjoy this movie like quite a bit. It is not my favorite Star Wars movie. In fact, I don't even know if I'd put it in my top three. But I greatly enjoy this film.
I'm probably with you. Now, just to be clear, Ben has seen it twice. I have only
Hmm.
seen it once. And there is a lot to unpack. I mean, there was one thing I noticed as more and more of my friends online saw this movie, and even just reviewers that I know, I had so many people write, I just need some time with this one.
Yeah.
And I didn't really like, to me that sounds like such a bad thing. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I didn't understand it until I saw the movie. And so I'm coming at this with only one viewing, and there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, and luckily I've had okay, so we saw it last night, so Thursday night at 7 p.m. Then I had a second showing at 12:30 in the afternoon today. And seeing it a second time helped me kind of unpack and get more of a feel for some of this stuff. But even then, I need another viewing, because there is so much. Okay, so the movie is like 2.5 hours long, which yay, lots of Star Wars, but they fit a ton in there. In fact, one of the things that we were kind of joking about as we were walking out last night is I was saying something about something that happened like near the beginning or whatever, and then someone said no, that was like in the middle of the movie. It's like, oh well, it was like the beginning of Act Two or something, because there's so many different like beats and progressions throughout this movie that it feels like there's a lot of story going on. Like it doesn't feel like it's a long movie. It's a long story. Like, does that make sense?
It feels like they said, "Hey, we understand you like Star Wars, so here's two Star Wars movies."
Yeah. But again, it doesn't feel long, which is weird. Well, maybe in a couple bits, but I mean, when it finally gets to, I would say, I don't know, what would you say is the beginning of the climax? Like when Luke actually shows up, or because for me it feels like it's getting to the climax when Ellie Sattler takes the ship to Lightspeed.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think there are two. Like, I genuinely, it's kind of a fun joke, but I genuinely feel there are two movies in here. We get a part one and a part two, and I think that there are kind of two climaxes, and I realized it because when we get to the point where you have the big confrontation with Snoke
Mm-hmm.
and the ship going through another ship at light speed and all of that, and that comes to a head. I was like, oh, this movie's almost done. And then I remembered the trailer and I was like, there's a whole damn planet we haven't
That is
seen yet.
exactly what I thought too. I'm like, wait, what was all that red, like the speeders with the red stuff? What's that have to do with any of this? Yeah, I'm right there with you. So, um, okay, when we did the Force Awakens, we basically summarized the whole story and kind of talked about bits. We're not doing that. When we talked about Rogue One, we kind of just talked little bits here and there. But I think you're right. We kind of have to go beat by beat and just kind of go over it for this.
Yeah, there is and a lot. I'm already seeing a lot of reviewers say this, and if you've been looking and following it, odds are you've heard it a lot. Uh, there's a line from the trailer where Luke says, "This is not going to go the way you think," and I
Mm-hmm.
think the reason so many people are honing in on that is because this movie is literally from start to finish not going the way you think it's going to go. The amount of things that happen in a predictable fashion for this movie is exceptionally
Yeah,
questionable. If there's anybody out there that's like, oh, it was just so predictable,
you're
like,
wrong.
you're weird. Did you see The Force Awakens? Because that was a movie that
Yeah,
followed the predictable path. And I like The Force Awakens, but this movie just it zigged every time it could zag. It
exactly.
was very, very weird. And I think that's the part that's the hardest for me to unpack is you go in with so much expectation. Even if you cut yourself off from following it and news and spoilers and all of that, you have these expectations of what a Star Wars movie is. And this movie defies all those expectations, sometimes for good, frequently for good,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes not so good. And as a result, I do think this is going to be a very divisive movie. I've already seen it. It feels like people either, I have seen some people that are lukewarm on it, but it feels like if you didn't like this movie, most of the people who didn't like this movie really didn't like this movie.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing too. And so, to kind of go back, we were talking about this in the car before dinner. Like, we blew some of our conversation on this already, but we're probably going to touch on some of the stuff. Um, the Force Awakens, it was a fan service film, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is basically taking the foundation of fan service of establishing a lot of echoing themes and everything, and then making these characters and this storyline something entirely different to the point where, like, not that it's not recognizable as Star Wars, but even to the point where I felt like it was kind of drifting a little bit over into, like, say, stylistically, like the Fifth Element or something before it went back into Star Wars land. And like, if you know me and don't know this about me, I'm not a fan of Fifth Element, but in this case, it kind of works based on what was happening. So, the big thing that I'm alluding to is just like the humor, because there's a lot of humor in this.
Yeah,
But it
almost right out of the gate.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is it works really well in this setting, in this way of storytelling. Like you said, right out of the gate, Poe comes in and does the Poe thing from The Force Awakens, where he's kind of being a smartass to the big bad guy and stuff. Which you and I talked about this. We both loved it.
Yeah, it really feels like it kind of, I mean, I don't think intentionally, but it kind of takes a shot at the prequels in a lot of ways because it does a lot of the things that I hated in the prequels but it does them successfully here. There are cuts to funny little creatures doing funny little things,
Hmm.
and it drives me crazy in the prequels. And in here, it's kind of endearing and it's nice, and like it's gonna take time and investigation for me to unpack why exactly I feel that way about it. Because
Well,
I don't know why cutting to a guy in like a weird alien in a smoker's jacket going what the, or Jedi poodoo flying around bugs me so much, but cutting to a horrified looking porg doesn't bother me at all.
well, there's a difference because in the prequels, it felt like so much of that was forced. It's like, oh, remember Star Wars is funny because remember Ewoks or something like that, where like they put in fart jokes in episode 1, which what the hell? But it's so forced. It's trying to actually like skew your attention towards the comedy bits. Whereas with this, everything actually feels lived in. Like, yeah, the porgs are there, and like when you're on that island, they're freaking everywhere, but they're not like rammed in your face. They're kind of here and there. They're cute, they're fun, but you see like how they adapt and how they live with just tiny little bits of it. So, of course, if someone's just kind of sitting there in front of a fire, like there's going to be porgs around, but them just kind of watching him eat another porg or trying to, it adds levity to it because they would be there anyway.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true. There's a lack of forced nature to it. I think another quality is just it's legitimately funny.
well, yeah, there's that too.
Someone saying poodoo is not as funny as seeing a horrified little creature watching a Wookiee prepare to eat a roasted version of their friend.
Yeah.
So there's definitely that. But man, what a weird movie this movie
Hmm.
is. Uh, and I mean that in both primarily as a compliment. Like, it is not the Star Wars movie we were expecting, and I don't think that there's a better example of that than when we get the answer of what happens when Rey gives Luke the lightsaber.
Yes.
I mean, we've had 2 years to wonder what are the first words Luke will say. What is Luke gonna do? Is he gonna take the lightsaber? Is he gonna walk away from it? Like, what's gonna happen? 2 years we've wondered this, and we finally get the answer. And as it turns out, it's throw it backwards over his head and off a cliff.
And then just walk away.
So uh, that to me was the biggest tone setter of like, hey, get ready because this movie just is not going to go where you think it'll go.
Yeah, and I just have to add to that really quick when it shows Ray getting the lightsaber, the Porg is like stepping on the activation button and the other one looking down the barrel.
You
I'm
know,
just like, oh.
I really wondered where all that was going. Like, I wondered if there was about to be a Porg just disintegrated, and like, boy, I wonder if they're gonna show that.
Well, a Porg doesn't get a lightsaber through an eye, but someone else does. But that's beside the point. I will say though, one Luke thing that was a little off-putting for me is when he milks that creature and then just drinks it in front of him.
I loved that point because I like dirty, gross space hobo Luke. It's so good. Mark Hamill, like, I gave kudos to Harrison Ford for coming back into the role of Han and just
Hmm.
being likable and enjoying it. And I think people really miscredit him because he can be so salty and sour in interviews. But
Hmm.
to me, he seemed like he was having fun through that entire movie, and he was enjoying being the character again. And I gave huge kudos to him. Mark Hamill, though,
Oh yeah.
friggin' steals this movie. Everything Luke does in this movie is awesome. And
Hmm.
even when it's not awesome things he's doing, he plays that part so well. I've never been a bigger Luke fan than I was in this movie.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, just the progression of his character from the end of Return of the Jedi, which is really truly the last time we actually saw him, till now, it's like you feel that he's lived all this time. It's like you feel that he had the failure of training Ben and everything, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh man, this is just like he's old man grumpy in set in his ways, kind of like I've failed life, and doesn't give a crap, but at the same time like still has that kind of draw to the life that he had before. And when Ray shows up and he's just like he's fighting it, but at the same time just so insanely curious about like what's going on and trying to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen again and everything. It's really interesting to see that dichotomy in him.
Yeah, he's done exceptionally well. In fact, it leads to one of my few gripes with the movie, and to me, this is probably a personal one. And the more I talked to you about it earlier, the more convinced I became that they made the right choice, but I still don't have to be happy about it.
Okay.
Which is that Luke dies in this movie.
Yeah.
And it turns out that we talked about the reasons that's important. So I have a friend at work who kind of doesn't want to go see this movie because he found out prior to the movie that Luke died in it. And he's like, I like Star Wars for these characters, and he names all original trilogy characters, of course. And he's like, and I don't want to go see Luke die. And I get that, and I'm with you, especially because he's so good in this movie. But like we were talking about in the car, I just at some point this movie needs to be about the new characters. And I thought it was so refreshing how much they focused on the new characters and not Han and Luke and Leia in the first one, or in The Force Awakens, I should say, that now at some point they have to pass that torch. And the
Yeah.
longer Luke is around, the more you spend time wondering, well, when is Luke going to show up? And uh, when
It's kind of like gosh, related to World of Warcraft. It's why isn't Ronan just showing up? Where's Thrall in all this? It's like,
Oh,
yeah.
I was gonna say he's like Poochie. When he's not on screen, all the characters should be asking, "Where's Poochie?" Um,
That is a horrible, horrible thing to say.
it's a
Luke is
horrible.
no Poochie.
No, he's not, and he's really good in this movie, and that's why I wish he didn't die. But at the same time, they needed to pass that baton. There needed to be an official passing of the baton, and I do think this movie makes more sense than passing that baton in the third movie for like a final fight or something like that.
Yeah, but the thing is though, I'm glad with how he did it. And he kind of gave himself up like Ben did. And it's not like he's totally mirroring the mistakes that Ben made, turning, I mean, granted, he did turn into a hermit after his student fell to the dark side, and drinks blue milk. I don't know. But
Drinks fresh from the teat milk.
yeah, exactly. But it it works in the sense that he comes back to being the Jedi Master Luke Skywalker. I One of the things I love is how he talks to Rey about being a legend and what that actually meant, and how just the arrogance of his thought in everything. It worked out really well to help bring us to this character, and then him coming back not as a legend, even though like when he shows up, that's how he's kind of portraying himself, but he knows what has to be done and what he needs to do. And the fact that the effort of it kills him, or well, not exactly kills him, it's just he allows himself to be taken and become one with the Force again. I like the arc. I love where it went. And the fact that, I mean, he's had all this time talking. I'm assuming he's talked to Obi-Wan and Yoda over the years, because Yoda shows up, so they could teach him how to become a Force ghost, because it's not canon that Jedi just turn into Force ghosts. That only happened with Obi-Wan and Yoda. And so, well, and technically Anakin, but we're not going to go there. But you know, him doing that opens up the possibility of him showing up again in the next movie, which I'm excited about and to see about, or to see how they actually play with that if they do. But I mean, this is how he can give Rey the what she needs, be there as the teacher that she's looking for and everything. And even more so, give us more Luke, because seeing him actually in the mentor role is something that I would like to see. And we got little bits of that, but not in the way that any of us was expecting.
I know we kind of from the trailer you expected this to just be like him training her for a really long time is what it looked like.
Yeah, I mean, her
And
standing there practicing with a lightsaber was in every single trailer. Granted, I
uh-huh.
saw like two of them. So your thing is like he's instructing her on, how to be a warrior of the light or something. And no, he does shit.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't care. Like he drops he kind of goes off and on, but generally speaking, he does not do much training of her. He tries once, kind of gives up, then later he says lesson 2, and you're kind of like, "Okay, well you're lesson 2ing her, but at the same time
He
you
never
also
really
kind of
got to lesson 3.
No, I bet Ghost Luke gives lesson 3. That's my
And it's the
guess.
rest of the training.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you have to kill your dad. That was part of my training, so you have to do that. You have to build a lightsaber, so you have to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she is in the position where she has to build a lightsaber. And while we're on predictions, we're not really, but just while we're throwing ideas out that are predictions, his lightsaber's been cut in half, and she needs a new one, and she always is fighting with a staff. And I am still on board with she is going to fight with a double bladed lightsaber at the end of this series.
I'd be okay with that.
Uh,
Make it cool again.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, Kylo Ren gets his fancy, cross hilt blade lightsaber. She can have a cool lightsaber too.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Maybe. I don't know. I've actually never been a huge fan of the double-bladed
Me
lightsaber,
neither.
but she's a character that walks around and fights people with a staff by default, and so it always seemed like a little jarring when she switches to this sword.
To a
So
one-handed weapon.
yeah, so I think it would be kind of cool if she had a double-bladed saber, maybe.
Yeah. So, speaking more of Rey, and I mean, we talked a tiny little bit about this as well, but I love that her parents were nothing. Like absolutely nothing. They were just, well, I
Probably
mean, that's
nothing.
what, yeah, most likely nothing. And the big reason why I like that is because there was such a huge like, oh, who's she related to? Because, so many people are like, oh, she's Han and Leia's other kid. It's like, no, why would they abandon her? Or like she's Luke's daughter. No, it's just I like the idea that it brings back a lot of the mystery of, um, oh, the Force is out there and you might be able to tap into it. You might be a Jedi. You might be this, because the whole midichlorian thing from the prequels just kind of like, oh, well, if you have a bunch of these little things in your cells, you're a Jedi. And instead of it, always being in a family line or something, it's still kind of going back to the whole random. It could crop up in anyone, and I'm glad that she's not a Kenobi. She's not a Skywalker. She's not a Snoke. I don't know, or a Palpatine or whatever.
Snoke.
Yeah, because it just, I don't know. It adds more mystery and um, fantasy to the whole concept to me.
I agree. I was talking to somebody prior to going and seeing it, and it's actually the same guy who is not going to go see the movie probably, but he said I don't think I want her to be Luke's offspring, and he said that just seems weird to me, and I said if you want to know my real prediction, my genuine prediction is that we find out her family, maybe they were rebel fighters or imperial fighters or something like that. But generally speaking, I don't think they're going to be a character of significance. And that ended up being the case. And I think that's kind of cool because they don't have to mess with anything for that to
Hmm.
work story wise. I do think it's weird that there's so many friggin' characters in this movie or in these movies that just have one name. I wouldn't mind there to be a couple more people with a last name, but
Well, let's put it this way: Rogue One had a bunch of people with last names, and I still can't remember all of them.
it's true. It's true, but I care about these characters. Rogue One, I
Well,
didn't care about anyone except the droid. Um, but
okay, fair points.
but I don't know. Like a last name's not the most important thing in the world. It's just part of the reason I wanted to know who her parents were was so I didn't have to just say Ray all the time. But I guess I'm just gonna say Ray all the time.
Well, her last name is all the time.
Ray all the time. Welcome.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear Lando say it.
Oh man. So, did you think that the code breaker or whatever might be Lando after they said that he was at the casino?
I really hoped it was gonna be Lando. I'm so ready for Lando to show up. I don't think
Everybody loves Lando, right? Like he's so great.
I think yes, but go back and watch trailers for The Empire Strikes Back and be weirded out by how excited they are about Lando, a character you don't know yet. Because keep in mind, these are trailers, and it's like every trailer for Return of the Jedi, it's like Luke Skywalker, Han Solo,
Lando
Chewbacca, and
Calrissian.
introducing Lando Calrissian. And it's like, what are you guys doing? Nobody knows what that means. Like, you're very, very excited. So
Okay, well, gosh, I didn't know that. I haven't actually seen those trailers in quite a while.
you should go back and watch them. It's weird. There's just a weird quality to like how excited they are about Lando.
Okay.
And look, don't get me wrong, I would also be excited about Lando
Oh yeah, who wouldn't?
because I think he should be in there. But at the same time, I don't know. Lando's
Like
always
I
been a
knew he
weird
wouldn't
character
be.
because he's the one that betrayed them. Like that's always the first thing that comes into my mind. I'm like, well, he betrays people.
That's what he does. It's fine. He's fine. Everybody likes him. We're
Yeah,
fine here.
he's
How are
good.
you?
He's got a weird campaign arc in the new Battlefront 2 game
I bet.
where basically he raids a facility and everything goes wrong and he just kind of jokes his way through it and things magically. He's got the Black Cat's superpowers basically.
Oh.
Like he's just like, I don't know, it probably will all work out. And then like a walker falls from the sky and blocks the lava flow for him and he's like, see? And it's just like, what's this his power?
Jeez.
Is he a Jedi? Does he have force luck powers? How does
Apparently.
it work for Lando?
Yeah, so
Anyway,
he doesn't
yes.
understand how Han won the Falcon. That's what it is.
Well, we're gonna get more Lando next year for sure.
Oh yeah, that's right. Donald Glover. I think he'll be a good Lando.
I think he will be an amazing Lando.
Freaking love Donald Glover.
Yes. So I'm really looking forward to that. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
enough about characters that weren't in the movie. You know who was in this movie?
Ray, I forget her last name already again.
Yeah. And Yoda.
Oh my gosh, that was so great seeing Yoda. Kind of.
So this is I didn't mean to go through all my gripes necessarily first, but it just seemed like a good point to mention Yoda.
I'm sorry, that was fun.
No, it's accurate. That's how I feel. Like the Yoda scene is amazing. It could have been a perfect scene, but there is something, cover your ears, children, fucked up about Yoda.
Yeah, I'm not bleeping that.
in
That's how wrong it is.
when he shows up. I think it's a puppet.
Well, okay, upon second viewing, I think it's both. I think they either CGI the face on a puppet or they have CGI for part of it and puppet for another part of it. And I got to say that something's not driving in all that.
Yeah, it's not as bad as original episode 1 Yoda, but it's
That
not
was the
far
worst.
off from being that bad.
No, it's still way better than original puppet Yoda, but it's not. You're right. It's not that great.
We have the technology, and I understand people get weird about too much CGI and all of that. But, like, we apparently had the technology to build Yoda back in the day. Why can't we build a good Yoda anymore?
I think if it was CGI or the CGI bits, they're trying to make it too close to the puppet so that like the eyes looked weird because in a puppet he doesn't have the as much of the facial movement stuff as CGI does. So like trying to have like kind of the stiff dead eye look of the puppet but still animate it well is kind of where it broke down a little bit. But the weird thing is that like that feeling of wrongness is only for part of the scene. The rest of him looks good in the rest of the scene, and I don't get how that works.
It does get better. I wouldn't say it gets great, but it gets better.
Yeah, well, great in comparison.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
And it's unfortunate because the scene is amazing. I really like it. I just spent a lot of time being like, man, that's a messed up Yoda. And it was on my mind a lot as I was watching that scene. It's just like, oh, that Yoda does not look good.
Well, I mean, he has been dead for like 30 years.
I also, part of me wondered if some of it was the ghost effect, you know, because sometimes you
Yeah.
just change lighting on a thing and all of a sudden it looks completely different. And if you're trying to give it a ghostly glow, maybe that looks odd. But I think maybe another part of it, and you were kind of alluding to this as well, is that whether it was CGI, a puppet, or both, I think they probably tried to go a little more high tech than they should have. I actually watched Empire Strikes Back with my family about a month ago.
Hmm.
And as I was watching it, and, you know, we were all kind of reacting to the Yoda scenes, I said, you know, it's amazing. That is clearly a puppet. We all know it's a puppet. We all know it's friggin' Miss Piggy doing the voice, and yet we all completely buy into this character.
Yeah.
And to this day, we still do when you watch that movie. That puppet has not had the effect broken. If you go back and watch Empire, there's stuff that doesn't hold up, but Yoda is not one of them. Yoda
Well,
remains a living, breathing character to us, and I feel like maybe they were worried that if they just did it again, it would look dumb in a modern movie, and maybe they actually made it worse and hit a weird, uncanny valley with it.
well, and the funny thing is when I was a kid, I had no idea that I was a puppet. Like, I don't know if I was just a dumb kid or something, or I just was so like into it that it just never really like it never clicked for me. It was really weird. But once I found out that he was a puppet, I'm just like, no, it's just a little person in costume, which obviously it wasn't. And then I kind of really looked at it more and stuff, and then finally it's like, okay, yeah, that's totally a puppet. But you're right. I still go back to that, and it's a character. It's not just some puppet. So yeah, no, I get that. But like overall, um, I love that scene. And the reason I love it is not because Yoda's back. I mean, that's definitely a big part of it because Yoda is playful Yoda, which that's my favorite kind of Yoda.
Yeah.
And like totally I'm messing with everybody Yoda is great. I mean, he smacks Luke on the face with his cane. I love it.
Yep.
And like he lights the tree on fire and like goes insanely crazy happy and like is kicking his feet because he's so happy because he lit a tree on fire and stuff. And I mean, he's happy to see Luke. He's like, "Oh, I've missed you," and they're just they're they're back to that whole like it feels like they've actually spent time together since Return of the Jedi. I think
Yeah.
you kind of get that, and I love the fact that he's still teaching Luke, and he teaches him a huge valuable lesson with all of that, and like I love that. I love that the master and student is a very good, kind of thematic presence in a lot of this movie.
Yeah, it's a very important bond, and it's examined quite closely. And it also does. I was realizing today that it's been a long time since we've wondered about Star Wars. You know, back in the day, we wondered every little detail. You know,
Hmm.
how did Darth Vader become Darth Vader? You know, who is the person behind the mask, and what's all this? And I grew up, you know, in a world where the original trilogy was you know, I think I was born before Return of the Jedi, but
No, you were born the year after.
wait, really? I thought Return of the Jedi was.
Jedi came out in '83.
Oh, okay. All right. So I was born in a world where they were all out. I don't remember. I don't remember learning that Darth Vader was Luke's father. I just
You just
remember
knew.
always knowing it. It was in the
Yeah.
genetic memory of all children post Empire Strikes Back. It's just known quantity. Um, and so I didn't have a ton of mysteries except, you know, what didn't exist within those three movies. And
Hmm.
slowly, books and comics and all of that filled in those gaps. And now we're at a weird place where we've got 2 out of 3 movies of this trilogy, and we're kind of filling in the story. We're wondering, okay, well, how did the First Order get so powerful that they could do this, that they could go from a failed empire to taking over the galaxy, and there's this little interest in a resistance movement against them. How did this happen? Who are these people? Where did they come from? Why is Kylo Ren called Kylo Ren? There's a ton of stuff that we're still trying to learn, and dialogue like the dialogue between Yoda and Luke, where we already know that Luke has been cut off from the Force, and then Yoda tells him how much he missed him,
Hmm.
fills in a gap of like, yeah, Luke probably was able to commune with Obi-Wan and Yoda and probably even his father, and then he cut himself off from the Force and he severed that connection, and they haven't seen him in all that time. And this
Hmm.
probably is the first time in a long while that Yoda's interacted with him.
Yeah, and I mean, to say that we didn't have, you know, Anakin there, whether it be Hayden Christensen or some old dude, I don't. We're not even going to talk about that whole thing, but like that he wasn't there because I mean, think about how much that could actually, impact this conversation because he was the failed apprentice. Or what about Obi-Wan who showed up, who was the one who failed? It's Yoda, the one who is, supposedly the wisest out of all of this, and the one who can just really kind of, well, quite literally smack some sense into him as opposed to, just getting a certain point of view of it.
Yeah, and I mean, when you think about it, Obi-Wan was less of his mentor and more of a friend, I guess. And,
Hmm.
he started him on the journey, but you even sense some bitterness about Luke's thoughts on Obi-Wan now at this point, where he actually seems almost a little poisoned to him. And it's one of the few prequel shout outs when Luke basically says, under the watch of the Jedi, Darth Sidious rose to power and overthrew the galaxy. Like, that's what we got from having Jedi rule. Like, what a great bunch of people they were.
And also, I love that it calls him Sidious and not Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah.
Like little touches like that in this script were great.
I think we're in a place where it's okay to acknowledge the prequels.
Well,
Like,
it's not even that. It's just the tiniest little thing that shows Luke really researched what happened with everything. He
yeah.
knows that it was Darth Sidious. He knows that, it was the whole rule of two. Like I'm of course, pulling that he knows that's the rule of two and all that stuff because if he knows Palpatine's name, that means that he had access to some sort of story or icon or archive or whatever that went through all this stuff. I mean, maybe it was just Obi-Wan telling him what happened or something, but it just opens up again that whole lore, that whole mystery, that whole this is a lived in story and this is a lived character who's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
sorry.
uh, I,
Weird things.
I dug that.
I've got a really good like kind of segue right here.
Yes, segue
Okay.
away.
So like I said, the whole master and apprentice thing with Yoda and Luke was really great, and I love how they talked about kind of the Force and everything. Overall, I love how the Force was portrayed and how it worked in this. It was really great to see, kind of again an explanation of what the Force is, because I mean, yeah, we've known what it is for forever, but we have to go back to this is for, a new audience as well as the old one and stuff. Luke's perspective on it was neat. Having the actual visual representation of, of the both sides, but then there's the balance in between, and that's what the Force is, was really cool and a nice little neat thing in there. But again, going back to Master and Apprentice, seeing Snoke and Ren was really cool. Seeing Luke and Rey was really cool. Seeing Poe and Leia as like a master and an apprentice was neat. I mean, that is littered throughout, but overall, and I know I'm jumping around a whole ton with this, and it's not even a segue anymore. It's like I don't know, a broken bridge or something. But um, the interplay between Ray and Ben throughout the whole thing of them just kind of seeing each other, even though it was brought on by Snoke doing it, it was so cool seeing her dynamic change with him as she kind of got to know him more, even if it was false.
Yeah, it went from I'm going to blast you the second I see you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want anything to do with you.
You're a monster. You're a murderer.
To, okay, well, what's your story? To, I don't believe your story. To, okay, well, maybe I believe your story, but there's probably more to it. To, hey, maybe you can be saved. And then
Mm-hmm.
at the very, very end, to, you're not even worth my time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's an interesting dynamic, and it also shows just the development of Ben in that whole thing. And I'm calling him Ben not because that's my name, but because I like that he's still Ben Solo to a degree. I mean, he hesitated on firing on his mom, which that was great, and I will get into the aftermath of that in a minute here. Um, but him going through and actually, finding an ally who's actually a genuine ally in Rey, so that he actually takes care of Snoke and destroys him and stuff. To following on the dark path, which, I mean, you were talking about twists. That was a major twist right there. I didn't think that he was going to just totally be all like, "Oh yeah, and we're totally going to rule the galaxy now," right?
Yeah, it was a weird moment because as a viewer, I kind of bought into Ray's naivety about the moment, and I was kind of with her, and then there was a part of me that was figuring it out at the same time, and then there was a part of me that was questioning it the whole time they were doing it, because I see them murder Snoke. Like, he's the first to fall. It's not like they cut through a bunch of guards and then kill Snoke.
Mm-hmm.
Snoke dies first, and then they fight the guards.
The guards are like, "Oh crap! I guess we should kill these
We got
guys."
a job to do. Uh, and I was wondering, I'm sitting there wondering, I'm like, Kylo's fighting with Rey. They look like they're allies. Who's the villain of this series gonna be? Like, what is it gonna be? Hux? Like, what's gonna happen here? And as they were fighting, I was like, who's it? What are they gonna do? Where is this gonna ultimately go? I legitimately don't know. And then as it finished and as they killed the final guard, my brain, even as the story was playing out on the screen, started to think about, well, what's the next step? Kylo hasn't decided that the First Order is wrong. He just decided he didn't want to work for Snoke anymore.
Yeah, it's the epitome of Luke, join me, and together we'll rule the galaxy as father and son. He
Y-
just did that before he made the offer.
we got to see it. Like, and that's the other thing is as anti-Star Wars trope as this movie is, it does give us some fan service in the form of alternate paths.
Mm-hmm.
What ifs? What if Luke had gone and stood against the Emperor with Vader? Like, and what does happen to a Vader that doesn't turn, but instead, just kills his master, but still thinks ruling the galaxy is the right way to go?
And it's just so freaking interesting that after everything that we saw, how, I mean, as much as it or as corny as it is and stuff, the whole, hey, I view the Jedi as wrong. I mean, Luke was standing over him with a lightsaber. I kind of get where he's coming from.
Yeah,
But at
it,
yeah, it
Luke was wrong. Luke was
yeah,
absolutely wrong.
yeah. Although, okay, so something I am gonna say is that um, I'm really curious as to who are the Knights of Ren still, because they talked about them in The Force Awakens, and now that Snoke's gone, are they going to be in this? Are they going to be like a task force that works for Kylo? I mean, like, how is that going to play into it? Are they even still alive?
I know, I thought for sure the Knights of Ren would be a big, prominent part of this. And
I thought they were, like, seeing all the action figures and stuff. I thought they were the Imperial Guard.
I don't know, maybe that will be ultimately revealed or something to that effect. But the thing that I thought was that I always went back to because I felt like, oh, this is going to be something of a template for what is to come. And I don't know how accurate that's been. But when Rey has her vision when she touches the lightsaber,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that she sees I have never understood in the vision, and that is there is a scene where she looks up and there is a man about to attack her. From her perspective, he's coming down at her,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden a lightsaber comes through his chest, and she is saved by Kylo Ren. But she's still afraid of him because it's Kylo Ren. But at the same time, technically, from the perspective we're seeing, he saved her. And then it does that big pullback, and that's when you see the Knights of Ren all standing around.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if that's going to be a third movie kind of answer that we get there. Because to me, that part of the vision, I still have no idea what that means.
Yeah, I kind of want to watch it right now just to see it.
Because I don't know who the guy is that Kylo kills. Was that supposed to be a good guy? Because they present him very much as a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
At least from Rey's point of view, he looks like a bad guy.
Yeah, or maybe that's something that just even happens after the destruction of the temple, or of the school or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know.
So
there's that mystery, John. There's that mystery of Star Wars.
There's mystery, and that's the fun part. Like, one of the fun parts about these movies is to, wonder and talk about it. And I think you're right. I think one of my favorite things this movie did is it made the Force mysterious again. It didn't try to explain it with midichlorians. They never sat down and were like, well, here's why this worked. Like,
yeah,
it was
definitely.
It was just the Force.
Oh, hold on. I got a cat being a douche. 1 second.
We're experiencing technical difficulties. All right, I'll stop singing. That's not helping anybody. Well, yeah, except my recording's still going, so
Crap, I forgot about that.
I just muted you and sang Spanish Flea, is what I did.
Okay, that's good call. I forgot about your recording.
Although people still get to hear you call your cat a douche.
Well, he is a douche. Okay, I'm unpausing mine. And we're back. Okay.
Little break there.
Yeah, sorry. Stupid cat. Anyways, okay, so I kind of talked about it a little bit, and I don't want this to be just an us kind of ripping on everything, but Leia got blown out of a ship.
Yeah, I don't want to complain about everything either, but I feel like once we talk about this, all my major gripes are done. You maybe have one more, but
well, I do, but I don't, and that's what I want to talk about. So Leia.
Yeah, it's probably the most. I think it's going to be the scene that is the most divisive. I don't like it one bit. It feels like Aliens at the end of Indiana Jones 4, honestly. Like,
yeah.
So, no, we don't need to explain. This is a spoiler show. We are assuming you've seen the movie. Space Leia bugs me. I don't like it. You can get the same effect by doing many other things. You don't have to go so unbelievable. And I have the same problem with Guardians of the Galaxy when they do it with Peter Quill and Gamora and a ton of other movies. I don't know why this has become a stupid trend of like, oh, people are dead in space. Surprise, they're not dead in space. And I hate it every single time it's done. Please stop this. It's not good. Just cut it out.
Yeah, the only time I actually like it is in the movie Sunshine. You ever see that?
No.
Good movie.
I'm not gonna, because it involves someone apparently supposedly dying in space.
No, he doesn't actually die in space. He just they have to transport him from one airlock to another.
But I think ultimately we're in agreement that it's cool to see Leia use the Force. Like, that's something that I've wanted to see, because I think that's an important step for her character, and I think it's an important part of her character.
Yeah, and at some point, Luke had to train her somehow.
Yeah, or at least show her the ropes a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, I do like that she still, feels stuff from, like in Force Awakens when Han died, she knew. I like how she feels Luke and she feels Rey. Like I get that she's got that part at least. Seeing her actively use the Force is good in a sense, but like you said, it's just this part bugs me. And so okay, upon second viewing, because the first time I'm like, I don't know if I what I heard was correct or not, but upon second viewing I'm like, okay, no, it wasn't correct. But what I heard was that so she moves her hand, she starts flowing. I swear to God, I thought I heard the ET music, but no, it's
Wow.
Princess Leia's theme, which is fine. But still, I thought it was the ET music. I'm like, oh, you're kidding
Well,
me. And
that definitely doesn't make it better, but yeah.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, yeah, and we kind of talked about it in the car a little bit, but like the fake out of "oh, Leia's dead" is not good in a world where Carrie Fisher's dead.
Yeah, I didn't. I get. So here's what I believe. I genuinely believe that this movie has not been altered because of Carrie Fisher's death.
Yeah, and
I
like good, but it's not like they could have reshot something with that scene either.
No, I mean they could have just said she died. Like it actually, they could have very easily just killed off the character in that moment.
Hmm.
It would have required a lot of reshoots around parts where she's involved later,
Yeah,
but it would have been a solution. I'm not saying they should have done that. I like her role in the movie. I specifically don't like the fact that it's like, oh, she's gone. Oh, surprise, the Force, she pulled herself back in and she lived. Like,
yeah. I mean, even more so, like it wouldn't have involved any sort of reshoots or anything. Is just alter that scene where there's an explosion on the bridge, and they just like it's a breach that closes itself or something. Because guess what? It's on a starship and there's glass right there, or duras or transparent steel, if I remember my Star Wars correctly. There's places in place or things in place where there would be a shutter or something, or heck, even go shields or force field or something to like keep the bodies there, and then she could be the only survivor.
yeah, I mean, anything just not as crazy as I'm way the hell out there floating in space, clearly dead, except, oh, I'm alive, would have been better. And whether that's everybody's getting pulled out and she reaches out and with the Force prevents herself from being pulled out until somebody can rescue her. Uh,
Hmm.
like, again, it can be an impossible feat that the Force saves her from. It's just this was that one step too far. It crossed that realm of believability to me, and it kind of got a little eye rolly for me. And I think Carrie Fisher is great in this movie.
Oh,
And
she's fantastic in this movie.
it's just this one particular moment that just really got to me. And in a world where Carrie Fisher didn't unfortunately also pass away, I wonder how I would feel about this scene, but I don't think that knowledge helped the scene. I think it made it worse for me.
Yeah, I agree. So moving on to like my last kind of gripe, which it's not a gripe, it just feels out of place, and that's the whole casino thing. So here's the thing. It feels out of place for this movie in my mind. I get that it had to be done to give Finn a lot of character development because one of the things that I love about this movie is that it takes up literally right after The Force Awakens, like literally, which begs me to think how long were those ships actually running from the Star Destroyers? Because a few days passed before Rey and Luke. So I don't know. Anyways, um, so the thing I like is that Finn selfishly went to Starkiller Base to save Rey. He didn't do it to be a hero or anything like that. In fact, he was going to leave the ship to go and try and save Rey again, which that's the whole reason why I guess he was awakened. Like that's the purpose that the script gave him. Otherwise, he'd just be kind of an ancillary character, just there, like on the ship. So you have to give him something to do, and I get that. But giving him a partner in Rose to kind of like teach him how to actually be a hero, I'm glad that happened, and I like the arc that they go through with it. But at the same time, I really feel that they could have, somehow done some sort of other plan, some sort of other MacGuffin to get him and Rose and BB-8 on board Snoke's ship. I just think that would have been better than, okay, well, we're leaving, going to an entirely different system and getting thrown in jail and then getting another dude who is there just to get us captured, which we could have gotten captured on our own trying to do this MacGuffin thing. It it doesn't work for me as well. Because I mean, people had a problem with like how fast they got to places in Force Awakens. Well, they're gonna have an issue with this one as well. So I don't know.
So just my perspective on this, because I am different from Ben on this particular one. I read early on in some early spoiler-free reviews that the Rose Finn journey was the low point of the movie, and maybe it was because I went in expecting it to not be good that I ended up being pleasantly surprised, and I actually enjoyed it, and I actually enjoyed the trip to the casino because we don't get to see, not that it was everyday life in the Star Wars universe, but it was as close to what we kind of are going to get. Because Star Wars, unsurprisingly, based on the name, focuses very heavily on the war.
The
And
one that's in the stars.
yeah, the Stars Wars.
Okay.
And as a result, we don't see society, we don't see the world very often. And I thought it was a nice chance to see a bit of that, to get some perspective, to, it definitely evolves Finn, but it also it evolves Poe's story. Because
Mm-hmm.
Poe's story is very much about being a leader doesn't mean just going with whatever bullheaded, like, shoot first, ask questions later scheme you currently have on your mind. And ultimately, the entire mission that Finn and Rose go on, and I think this is something that people hate about it, it serves no purpose. It fails. It completely fails uh, in just about every way it possibly
Yeah.
could. In fact, it makes the situation worse. And in movies, you don't typically get that. Usually, if people put it all on the line, it works out. That's the way movies go. And I kind of like that there's a story where people take a huge risk and it just doesn't do any good for anybody.
Well, and see, that I have no problem with at all. I still think that they could have gone to the ship and been captured, or, like those similar beats could have happened. Them going out to the casino and everything like that, it really felt like, okay, well, let's just get them off the ship to give them something to do. I think that there could have been, maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes less of their adventure, but like getting them, sneakily to the ship. But let's say that they were, um, being monitored the whole time. Like, let's say they just weren't even, they think they got there okay, but oh no, they totally knew that they were there. They were being monitored or whatever. They were still captured. Like, all of that still could have happened. Like, all of it.
Sure. But I mean, here's the thing. With any scene that is, if you're going to say this fails and therefore ultimately has no impact on the plot, then the scene by default can easily be cut or removed. You can do whatever you want to it because it
Mm-hmm.
ultimately doesn't impact the plot. I personally enjoyed the scenes. I thought the setting was cool. I thought some of the jokes around it were cool. I thought that, probably the most important thing that happens there is we're kind of introduced to society and some unnamed characters that are quintessential in the form of how the movie ultimately ends, um, which could have been done very easily another way, but I think there's something artistic about the fact that we
Yeah.
see slavery and maybe not necessarily slavery. They kind of seem to avoid that term, even though Star Wars has always been very heavy on saying it exists in this
Mm-hmm.
universe. But, you have these poor kids that are working under a taskmaster who's clearly whipping them and animals. And at the very end, after Luke has died, you see a little boy use the Force, and it's kind of resonating the theme of rebirth and starting over and all of that. And I thought that was very neat. That doesn't necessarily justify the entire casino trip, especially if you don't like it. But again, I personally liked it.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm like I don't hate it, and I get why it's there, and I do like the character development, and especially because, I mean, Finn's entire life has been the First Order, or First Order, right? For some reason that doesn't sound right all of a sudden.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So his entire life has been the First Order. So when he goes and sees the casino, like he thinks it's this land of luxury, and I get that, and that works. And then seeing him shift and actually see the little people and the kids and everything like that, and him like growing as a character, like I love. And like I said, I don't hate these scenes, and especially after the second viewing, I like it a lot more, and there's a lot of fun to be had there. It's just like I said, I just think it could have that exact thing could have been done somehow differently, and that's all. Again, don't hate it. Like I feel like I'm coming across as this is the worst thing ever, but no, it's not.
Why do you
It's
hate the
just
scene, Ben?
I hate it because I hate kids, and it had kids in the scene.
Oh man,
So
it's so
yeah, I
rough,
know,
so
especially if they're
harsh.
force wielding kids. I hate those. They're the worst.
Uh,
But
let's talk about Poe Dameron
yeah, he's
because
a guy.
Poe's really cool. I really like him.
Yeah, no, I am totally in agreement. Like from the moment that he first talks in this movie, I'm like, yeah, it's Poe. Poe's great. Like I love how he's the new Han Solo without being the new Han Solo.
Yeah, except for the part where he literally dresses like him near the end.
I wasn't gonna bring that up, but
Like,
well, no, maybe it's an issue of like where Lando was wearing Han's clothes at the end of Empire. It's just that's the clothes they had.
yeah, yeah, we evacuated quick. The Millennium Falcon's there, except I don't know why he would have been on it. There's no reason for him to have been. Um, no, I think it's fine that he dressed like him. There's a style to the galaxy, but I'm glad I wasn't the only one who noticed that Poe at some point I was just like, he's dressed exactly like Han Solo.
Yeah, well, it happens.
Like, hey, when you're cool, this is how you dress. I guess this
Yeah.
is how it ultimately works. This is how
By the
cool
way,
people dress.
you didn't say anything when I had my new black vest when we went out for dinner.
Oh, because you're you're not as cool as Han Solo.
Ah, crap.
Sorry. You didn't earn your sweet black vest, Ben. I'm sad to say.
I know, I bought it.
I know that's not how it works.
Oh,
You just
okay.
mysteriously show up in it when you become cool enough.
Oh, you just get cool and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're wearing a black vest now. That makes sense.
But I really like Poe. There's not a ton to say about him, even though I think he has a really good part in this movie. But he's just very likable.
Yeah.
As one of the funnier characters, as one of the characters that kind of gives you the audience a voice. I was telling Ben earlier that at the beginning we pan down, we go on the bridge of a star destroyer, we listen to Hux give another impassioned speech, and I was just sitting there listening to Hux talk, and I was just like, man, somebody needs to take Hux down a peg, because this guy is just turned up to 11.
And then instantly.
And then Poe showed up and did exactly that, and I was so grateful for it.
Yeah, no, he is turning into definitely one of my favorite characters too. He's a ton of fun, and going back to the whole master and apprentice thing, I love the dynamic between him and Leia, and the fact that like he essentially mutinied for what he thought was right, which he was definitely wrong, but just seeing him kind of turn from hot-headed, impulsive guy to, okay, let's kind of back off a little bit. The fact that he's trying to pull Finn away, orders everybody away. It's like it shows the growth that he had, but even more so, it's going to give him such a better part as a leader in the coming movie in the rebellion. And I love that about him, that he is just so cool, has the skills to back it up, is friends with an awesome cool droid, and then even more so he's the guy now.
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. As somebody who has a dog named Buddy, listening to Poe call everybody Buddy is very endearing to me.
Oh, well.
I just relate to it. He looks at BB-8 and he's like, "It's my buddy," and I'm like, "That's what I say." That's He has the same relationship to BB-8 that I do with my little buddy.
Why are you suddenly wearing a black vest, John?
Oh man, I'm cool like Poe.
You've done it. Oh, not enough R2, but that's basically just going to continually happen from now on.
Okay, here's a good transition. We've talked about gripes. I agree. I would like to see R2 have a bigger role. But R2D2 has what I think is one of the few perfect scenes in this movie.
Yes.
Because the point where Luke says there is nothing that will bring me back and he plays the hollow message of Leia, I was like, that it got dusty in the theater all of a sudden. Like
for me it was just when Luke saw like, hey, watch the language, sacred temple. Like, I love that. But I mean, no, R2 was great there. And I mean, to me, he's always been a hero. Um, Obviously, in the original trilogy, he's one of the most heroic characters through the whole thing. And, I've made no secret, he's my favorite Star Wars character. He probably always will be. And I understand that he's old now. I mean, he was kind of old and stuff in A New Hope. So all the time that's gone by, all the updates and droids and everything. I mean, obviously the BB units are starting to be everywhere. You don't really see any astromechs anymore. The fact that one, he's still around is awesome, but even more so that he had a very significant, although tiny, role in this movie made me happy.
Yeah, I definitely, there were moments where I was like, "Where's R2 though?" Like
Yeah.
for real though, where's R2 at the moment?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad that they didn't like get him up in Luke's little house and everything, because there's no way he would make it up the hill.
Well, he's got rocket packs though, Ben.
But I like that. Yeah, he's helping scan for Leia and everybody when they're flying around in the Falcon after they. Oh, dude, how freaking fantastic was the destroy that ship, and Hux is totally right there with them, and then Zol, they hate that ship. Oh, that was so good. And I mean, the attack the Death Star, like Return of the Jedi music that went along with it, when they started doing the fancy flying and then went through like the mine and stuff, and that was enough Falcon for me that I was like sated, because I always love Falcon flights, just going around dodging stuff, flying. Like, I love that ship. It's my favorite space ship out of like any sci-fi. And oh, that was so satisfying and so good and so much fun. And having Ray on the gun be like, hey, I like this, or this is great, or whatever, and she's wahooing and everything, just like Finn was. It was endearing, it was cool, and I loved it. And I also want a pair of those dice.
Yeah, the dice, real prominent role for the dice.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. A fitting tribute for Han Solo.
Definitely.
Well, I just said Han Solo out loud. I know we said we were done with gripes.
Okay.
But I have a gripe for The Force Awakens.
Hey, we're not talking about that movie much. I wonder what you're gonna say, actually.
Does it bug you that they say Han Solo every single time they mention Han's name in The Force Awakens? As if there are a million Hans and we have to identify specifically which Han we're talking about?
I've never noticed that.
Okay, here's your homework, everybody. Go see The Last Jedi. But either before you go, or if you've already seen it, or when you're going back, watch The Force Awakens. And just notice how often people say Han Solo instead of calling him Han. It's always like, you're Han Solo. The droid is in the hands of your father, Han Solo. When he yells Ben and stands on the walkway, Ben turns around and says, Han Solo. In the forest, when they're fighting, he says, Han Solo can't save you now. Like every single time they call him Han Solo by his
It's
full name.
okay. It's kind of coming back to me, and yeah, I just realized that. Huh.
Maz Kanata calls out Han Solo while they're trying to be undercover in a bar. Um,
I think Finn's the only one who calls him something
he
different.
just calls him Solo,
Did you just call me Solo?
which he gets in trouble
You...
for.
yeah, because he goes by Han Solo.
Apparently, to everyone, literally including family. I
Yeah, it's
think.
like Captain Jack Sparrow. It's just you call him Han Solo. That's his name.
Anyway, it's my
Yeah.
weird observation. It has bugged me literally since 2 years ago when I saw The Force Awakens.
Well, I'll make sure to constantly call him Han Solo when I'm around you now.
Hey, John, can you get Han Solo for me? I just need to talk to Han Solo. Han Solo's over there. Did you see? Remember when
Hey,
Harrison
Han
Ford
Solo.
played
How's it
Han
going, Han
Solo?
Solo? My friend Han Solo?
He
Yeah.
gets called Han a lot in the original trilogy.
As well as Han.
Yeah, Han and Han.
It's an accent thing. That's all I
Sometimes
figure.
the same person calls him both names.
Han. It sounds like he's trying to say Han.
it,
Yeah.
it's very distracting.
So we've talked a lot about stuff that we've liked, tiny gripes here and there. I have to go off with, again, freaking Mark Hamill is awesome, but that final battle with him and Kylo Ren is one of the coolest things in Star Wars.
It's really good. And again, that leads to my problem with his death. He ends on such a cool note when he's just see you around kid. And then he's gone. And I was like, yeah, he's going to see him later when oh, shit, he's dead. Like, I think.
Well, I mean, the cool thing is he knows he's a Force ghost, or knows he's going to be, or something like that. So we've never seen, like,
A haunting.
Force ghost, yeah, Force ghost Obi-Wan hanging out, like stopping by Darth Vader, being like, "Hey, remember how you killed me?" Ooh, or something like that.
You're so haunted now. You're going to be totally haunted. I do want to give a special, it was really nice seeing the tribute to Carrie Fisher. I thought she did an amazing job. And one other thing that I think she deserves a lot of credit for is the dialogue in this movie was fantastic. And
Mm-hmm.
it's commonly known that in addition to Rian Johnson, Carrie Fisher did script work for this movie.
Oh, great.
And I think the movie is probably a lot better for it for that exact reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a well-known fact for Star Wars nerds, maybe less known outside of the geekiest among us, but Carrie Fisher did a lot of script editing, and there's a reason that you probably like Empire Strikes Back and even Return of the Jedi as much as you do is script work that Carrie Fisher did on those movies. So her
Can you
doing
imagine
that
if
on
she
this
was able
too
to
is
do the
big.
prequels? If she did the prequels, we might have liked it.
Yeah, it probably would have been funny.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I do agree. The script is great, but Carrie Fisher, I like, to this day, it still affects me thinking of her being gone. And the tribute was beautiful. Seeing her and Luke together, I just started tearing up so much in the theater. And I mean, a lot of the movie just it really hits you emotionally, like, not just because Carrie Fisher's dead, or just anything like that. Just it plays on a lot of really good beats, and like if you let yourself go into the movie, there's a lot there to kind of to feel and unpack. Like, just aside from all the story stuff and everything else that we've kind of been talking about, just the general emotion throughout the film is full of highs, full of lows, and it I don't know, I think it succeeds on just giving you those feelings, and pulling you through everything, like not forcing you through it, but just kind of gently going along with you through the whole story. And that's something that I think that the Last Jedi has, definitely over the Force Awakens, and I mean definitely over the prequels. And it is it's just a good feeling movie because of that.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate this movie. I don't know where it will ultimately land, although I would like us to go down our current ranking list because people love lists. Um, but I don't know where it will ultimately land when history gets to play its little role. But I appreciate this movie for swinging for the fences, whether or not it always hit it out of the park or not. I feel like it tried to do something very different, and it tried to be
Mhm.
different, and it tried to be its own movie. And the places where it succeeds and the way it's surprised and all of that was just incredible.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, so there's been four Star Wars movies that have really had basically everything riding on them. Return of the Jedi, because it's, it was originally going to be the end cap to all of Star Wars. That had a lot riding on it because of that. Episode one, obviously, because oh my gosh, new Star Wars, which that one might not have, been very successful with. Who knows? Um, the Force Awakens, big time, because it had to follow up after the prequels and move forward into the aftermath of Return of the Jedi and be set a long time afterwards. And then I really think the Last Jedi had a ton to live up to because the Force Awakens was such a success. I mean, can you imagine if the Last Jedi was like prequel level quality?
I mean, there are some people who think it is.
Yeah, you know what? That's true. And I mean, everybody has a right to their own opinion, but I'm really interested on why they think that, because to me it's a great movie.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing it again.
I think even at my most critical moments of reflecting on it and all of that, even then I don't think it deserves to be knocked to that level. I think
No,
that
definitely.
the acting, the moments that were good are way above anything that's in the prequels. I think anybody that puts this below a prequel is insane.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that there are a group of people out there who the prequels, that's their trilogy because of the age that they were. Good on you. Um, but I mean, if you think about it, the negative things that we've said, it's essentially a gripe about, flying Leia through space, me just kind of the setting of a section of the movie, and then us complaining about Yoda looking a little weird.
Yeah.
Everything else is high praise. And I mean, I really enjoy this movie. And just talking about it more with you, I'm realizing that I like it more than I thought I did.
That's how I've been. When I left the movie, it was pretty low on my list, and it has moved its way up the more I thought about it, and the more I continue to think about it. I'm very curious to see, Force Awakens. I don't think it's controversial to say its popularity has waned since it came out.
Which
Uh,
is kind of a bummer because I still think it's a great movie.
I still think it's great too. But it definitely people turned on that movie after the fact. I am curious to see if this movie becomes more or less accepted as it goes. I mean, Empire Strikes Back, to draw parallels, got more popular over time. It was not very popular at first.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that was because it was a cliffhanger and it was not necessarily a common thing back then.
Which, oh my God, I thought that when Luke walked outside of the base, it was going to end.
Oh man, that'd be a big cliffhanger.
I mean, I really thought that they were going to cliffhanger this. Like they get to the the base and then it ends or something. Then it kept going. I'm like, okay, good, we're good. And then uh, they do the whole skip thing. And oh, there's one last thing I want to talk about with you that I thought was really neat.
Okay.
Okay, so the battering ram laser thing that they had.
Yeah.
I love the fact that Finn says, "Oh yeah, it's Death Star tech." I freaking love that because why wouldn't they try to use that stuff on a smaller scale to make a devastating weapon?
Yeah, I agree. Like, no, it either destroys a planet or nothing. That's
Yeah. So
all it is.
like them having that and bringing it and it being like a, "Oh, this is bad." And it's not a super weapon was just it's weird to say refreshing.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was just amazingly cool. I love that idea on that. And also, I have to give a shout out. First of all, Laura Dern's character was awesome. Vice Admiral, I don't remember her name,
Holdo.
Holdo. She was really cool, and I like that it was, oh, she's a villain, but she's not.
Yeah, she had a very there's a Battlestar Galactica plot in this movie.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, but like her ultimate sacrifice and like seeing that command ship go to light speed through Snoke's ship was fantastic.
Yeah, so good. All right, Ben, let's do the list thing.
Okay, honestly, I could probably talk about this movie for another hour. I there's so much to talk about, so many different thoughts on it and everything, but I think we've gone on long enough.
Yeah,
But man, I want to keep talking
I
about it
know,
now.
I could too, and we probably will. But the
I'm tempted to go see it again right now. Like I'm almost looking up ticket prices, but I'm like, no, I already saw it once today. I'm
plus it's
good.
2.5 hours, man.
Yeah, I
It'd
know.
be a real late night at this point.
Definitely.
Uh,
Okay, well you go first. I guess start from the bottom?
yeah, that's probably a good idea, right?
Yeah.
So I think Attack of the Clones is at the bottom.
Okay.
I will maintain that Attack of the Clones, while better acted than the Phantom Menace, and while it has less Jar Jar, and that's a net positive for everybody, and it introduces Jango Fett, who is cool, it is not as good as Phantom Menace. That movie tricks you because it has a really good fight at the end, but everything else in that movie is really bad. And that's it's a super boring movie. So I put that at the bottom. I know that's kind of a questionable call,
That's
but
okay.
that's
Um
that's what I feel.
so at the bottom I put the Phantom Menace because the redeeming quality of episode 2 for me is I really like Obi-Wan and Obi-Wan's story. And he is not really in the Phantom Menace.
No, instead they got Liam Neeson. Liam freaking
Yeah.
Neeson.
Well, Liam Neeson's really cool too, but I'd like Obi-Wan a lot. So yeah, I would put the Phantom Menace first, and then I would put episode 2.
All right. Well, we're just going to flip flop because that's where I would put Phantom Menace. It wins because
Okay.
I like pod racing and because I like Duel of Fates. And
Duel of Fates is good.
those two moments are better than any of the good moments that are in Attack of the Clones.
So did you totally think that there was going to be pod racing in The Last Jedi like I did?
No.
Oh, okay. Because when they heard that and then there was a track, I'm like, oh shoot, is this pod
I
racing?
thought it was going to be dog racing. I didn't know. I mean, it was going to be space dogs, but I thought it was going to be dog racing.
Poor Nevermore, she got so excited thinking it was going to be Tauntauns.
I know. It would have been cool if it was Tauntauns.
Yeah, I would have been fine with that. Okay, so uh, third least favorite for you.
Um, Rogue One.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, I'm actually kind of surprised about that.
I was not big on Rogue One to begin with, and I have gotten nothing but more and more sour on that movie. K2SO is great, but that movie makes no attempts to make me care about any other character in the movie. It's a bit of a mess. There are things that don't make sense, and it also tries to trick you by having a really cool scene at the very end. Uh, but it is up to that point not very good.
Wow. Yeah, that's wow. I'm surprised. I mean, after we talked about it last year, I thought that it was still pretty high for you, but okay. For me, my third least favorite is definitely, I would have to say, Revenge of the Sith. While it is the best of the prequels, I still like all the other movies more. After that, I would actually put. Um, See, this is where it starts getting tough.
Yeah, you're now past bad movies pretty much.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go for next? Because mine's easy and I can talk about it for a minute while you
Yeah, go
decide.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, next for me is going to probably be a little bit obvious. Next for me is Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, no way.
It took 3 movies, but they did eventually make me care more about those characters than I cared about anyone in Rogue One, which is why it pops up ahead. There are some cool moments. We finally get to see the creation of Darth Vader. There's some parts about that aren't very fulfilling, but that last fight is fantastic. seeing the fall to the dark side and all of that is just really good. I think it's the most watchable of those movies, and I think it probably suffers more from being tied to the prequels. I feel like if in a world where that was the first movie we got, I don't think it would have been panned very much. In a
Yeah.
world where that's the end of a really bad trilogy, I think it gets nicked a lot more.
Okay, I can see that. So it's still tough. I'm gonna go with Return of the Jedi. And
Wow.
see, here's the thing: is that these last ones, they're almost always in a state of flux for me because it's just like ask me at any time, and these ones can change order. Um, I really love Return of the Jedi. It was my favorite when I was a kid because I'm a huge fan of ship battles, and I mean Return of the Jedi had such great. God damn, I can't put Return of the Jedi there, but yeah,
Are you gonna switch it
that's the
in
thing.
the
No,
middle of the show?
no, I'm gonna put Return of the Jedi there. I love Return of the Jedi. This has nothing to do with because I'm past the ones that I'm lukewarm on. I'm at the ones where like I really like these or these are my favorites. So yeah, so Return of the Jedi, it's great. I love the cap of the original trilogy. It closed it nicely, but when I was a kid, it left so much more like possibility out there, which is one of the reasons why I totally poured myself into the expanded universe book series until, well, one author just ruined my faith in all that. So yeah, yeah, okay. Then after that, I'd have to say Rogue One.
All right, that's
Obviously, I like it more than you. It's fine.
exceptionally generous for that movie, but
Hey, these are our own personal feelings on
I
this. You
know,
don't get to judge
I
me.
know. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that's you're being very, very generous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I recently just rewatched it and I had such a great time with it. I really enjoyed it. I like the characters, even though,
Can you
they,
name them?
most of them.
Okay, who? What are their names?
Well, there's Tourette, there's Cassian, there's Jin, there's Bodhi, who, he's just the token Imperial, apparently. There is K2SO, who's my favorite. Darth Vader's in that. So is Grand Moff Tarkin.
What?
I forget Tourette's husband's name, which is not helping my case at all. But it starts with a B, doesn't it?
I don't know because
Oh,
you could be like, there's Ned and Gregory, and I'd be like, well, shit, Ben remembers all the names.
yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Anyways,
I
so
didn't
I,
think
I
it was
like
Ned
them,
and Gregory, but
but
there we are.
here's the thing: I like it more than Jedi because I like it as a companion to Episode 4, and like putting those two together elevates both of them in where my headcanon is with it. Well, not even my headcanon, that makes no sense. It elevates them both in my preferences as a companion piece. If Rogue One didn't exist, then I would actually have episode, or I hate calling them episodes because that's just the prequels. I would have A New Hope lower on the scale, which is weird. But put those two together and I really, it works really well for me.
All right. My next one is Return of the Jedi.
Oh, you hate that one.
No, I don't.
I know.
No. Return of the Jedi goes right there. It is a harmless Star Wars movie. It is solid. It's got good space battles. I kind of don't like much of what happens on Endor, which is why it ends up being as low as it is.
Yeah.
Is the biggest problem. I just don't care for any of the Endor stuff.
Well, is it like okay? Let me ask you: do you like Ewoks?
No, but it's not.
It's
It
not. Oh, they're freaking teddy bears. It's just.
Yeah, it's just I don't. I like the idea of the indigenous population turned on the stormtroopers, but yesterday we had a conversation in the car coming back from the movie where I was like, just once I'd like to see a blaster bolt glean off the side of stormtrooper armor just to suggest that there's a reason why they wear all this armor
Yeah.
rather than every single time it hits it just kills them. And Add to that apparently little stone rocks and wood clubs kill Imperials real quick, even in Stormtrooper armor. It just, I don't know. Like I don't love that, but it's not specifically because of Ewoks. Like I don't like the
Hmm.
speeder bike stuff. I don't like the I think something happened to Leia. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Like all that story stuff, I just like that to me
all
is how
all
you
the
feel.
super duper sappy, he's my sister, or he's my sister, you're my sister, and all that stuff. Like that is the lowest point of that movie for me. It's done so
I'll
poorly.
also say this, I'm not a big fan of the Jabba stuff at the beginning either.
Yeah, same here.
Which is now I've named like 75% of the movie.
And
Anyway,
yet it's still
that's
better than Rogue One.
that's
Huh.
where yeah, it's definitely better than Rogue One.
Okay, okay, no worries. So after that, what's next? Because okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but we both have Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and Empire left,
And A New
and A
Hope.
New Hope.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next for you?
That's true? That's true for both of us?
That's true for both of us.
Okay, next up is The Last Jedi.
Me too.
Uh I
Let's be
think
friends.
this has the best chance of moving right now
Mm-hmm.
because I have only seen it once. I like it the more I think about it, but as of right now, the jarring stuff is still too jarring to move it up higher than this. And unfortunately, we'll get to it in a minute, but there's an issue with the next two that basically guarantees that whatever is in this position is always going to be behind two movies, almost. So,
Okay.
um,
Well, I'll say that as of right now, that's where it's sitting, and it does have a potential of moving forward as well. Because again, the more I think about it, the more I like it, and like I'm so like I said, the casino thing, it kind of irked me the first time. Second viewing, I'm like, okay, no, totally works and fits, and for the reason. But again, I still had issues like I obviously spoke of before. But yeah, I enjoy it quite a bit. So for me, after that, then I'm going with A New Hope. Again, I like it a
interesting.
lot more because of Rogue One, but A New Hope is still a great movie, and it's what got everybody into it. And I know that some people put it at their top just because it was the first one, not me, but I've appreciated and grown to love that movie more and more as time passes as well.
Yeah, I think that's another thing to keep in mind. I grew up in a world where all three of the original trilogy were already out, so there is no like, oh, it was my first. Like again, I just knew of all the movies. I can
Hmm.
remember telling babysitters when I was, could barely talk, Snow One when I wanted to watch Empire, or
Yeah, I was kind of the same way. I mean, Empire came out the year I was born, so.
and I used to get very frustrated because there were times when I wanted to watch A New Hope and there were times when I wanted to watch Return of the Jedi, but because they both start on Tatooine, I could not tell the difference when I was a little kid. So I
Uh,
would be watching and I'd just be like, "Where's the scene where R2 gets shot by Jawas? I don't. It's not happening. Instead, there's a slug." Um, all right, I'm gonna take the next two because I got to
hmm.
talk about the next two.
Okay.
So my position, my next one in line is The Force Awakens.
Okay.
But the one above that is A New Hope. But here's the thing, these two switch all the time. They are in a constant spinning dance with one another in my mind as far as which one I like more. And I know there's a common criticism of, oh, they're the same movie. Here's the thing, A New
No, they're
Hope
not.
is a better movie than The Force Awakens. There is nothing really in particularly wrong with A New Hope, whereas The Force Awakens has a whole Star Killer base thing that I find infuriating and bad. However, if you ask me, John, let's watch a Star Wars movie, but you want to watch The Force Awakens or A New Hope, probably 8 out of 10 times I'm going to pick The Force Awakens. It's
What
a
about 4 out of 5 times?
I don't know. Leave me alone. So so I think I think A New Hope is a better movie, but I might like The Force Awakens more from it's just very watchable kind of standpoint.
No, I get it. I totally get it.
And as a result, they flip flop for me a lot. Right now, I think I'm at a place where I would put A New Hope above Force Awakens, again, simply because I think everything with Starkiller Base is bad.
Okay. Well, let's see. For me, all I have left is what, Empire and Force Awakens?
Yes.
So Force Awakens is next because it is an insanely watchable movie. I love the new characters. I love the continuation of it, and I really love that movie.
Yeah.
So last but not least, the best movie is The Empire Strikes Back.
Yep. For all the reasons that it's probably at the top of most of your lists.
Yes. So The Last Jedi.
We did it. We
We did
ranked
it.
them. We did a list. We're gonna be on a. We're gonna be on. Oh wait, didn't you have a quiz we were supposed to take?
Oh right, right. Okay, we're gonna end this with the BuzzFeed "Which Star Wars character are you?" quiz.
Okay, if you don't want to know which Star Wars character we're gonna be, this is the end of the episode for you. But if you're dying to know which Star Wars character Ben and I are gonna be, then hold on to the edge of your seat, because here it comes.
Yeah, and we're gonna go through this together, so don't worry about us being like, okay, we're gonna be silent and do this. We're gonna read everything that there is. So let me know when you got it pulled up.
Okay, I am pulling it up now. I just had to stop the video part of this.
Oh, and sorry, this is which Star Wars character from the new trilogy are you?
Oh, for the new trilogy. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
So yeah, slightly different. So okay. The first question, do you just want to bounce back and forth and read the questions that way?
Yeah, you go ahead and take the first one.
Okay. How would you spend your ideal Saturday night? There's at home with my pet or pets, at a bar drinking with my friends, on a date with an intergalactic bae. That's automatically disqualified for me because they use the word bae. On a vacation far, far away, binge watching my favorite TV show, or plotting revenge on my enemies.
Okay, so I'm going with on a date with an intergalactic bae because this is how I would like to spend my ideal Saturday night, not how I actually spend my Saturday nights.
Really? Because I'm totally good with staying in, so binge watching my favorite TV show.
I mean, that's my current life, so you know, it is what it is.
Okay.
If given the choice, which color would your lightsaber be? Green, blue, red, purple, yellow, or orange? This is easy. It's always been this way ever since Jedi Knight on the PC. Purple.
Yep, mine's always been blue. Okay, choose a ship to cruise the galaxy with. There's the Millennium Falcon, a Star Destroyer, TIE Fighter, X-Wing, Naboo Starfighter, and I'll stay on land in my speeder. I'm choosing the Millennium Falcon because it's the Millennium Falcon.
I'm choosing... Oh man, this is hard. I didn't expect this quiz to get so difficult. Here's the problem. The Millennium Falcon is the Millennium Falcon, but they've got the new X-Wing shown in their little picture there, which I like, and it's the black and orange one, and I love it. I'm going to go with the X-Wing. I've always been more the fighter pilot, not a freighter pilot.
Okay.
Which quality is most important to you in a friend? Humor, compassion, honesty, adventurous, creativity, or ambition?
Well, John, what is it?
For me, I'm going to say...
Well, I'll just go ahead and tell you mine. Mine's humor.
I'm going to say mine's honesty.
You're a jerk.
Wow. It's harsh, but true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is I don't think that I would actually be friends with someone who isn't honest. And humor is important to me because I like to joke around with people and have fun. Yeah. Okay. Your turn?
Nope, because I just read that one.
Oh, right. I knew that. Choose an original trilogy character to be your partner in crime. Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Lando Calrissian, Darth Vader, R2-D2, and Han Solo.
And Ben, even though it's really silly for me to ask, which character would it be?
R2-D2, because if we are trying to do crime, guess what? He's going to get me into places.
All right, I'm gonna go with Obi-Wan Kenobi because
He can get you out of
as
places.
much as I like Han Solo and Lando Calrissian, and they were probably my first initial two thoughts, I just feel like they're gonna get me in an annoying amount of trouble.
Yeah, and honestly, I think R2 is going to get me out of any trouble. Even more so, I can smuggle crap inside of him. So, yeah, I'm good.
All right, Ben, time to permanently mark yourself. Choose a Star Wars quote to tattoo on your body. You're my only hope. I find your lack of faith disturbing. Do or do not, there is no try. I've got a bad feeling about this. Never tell me the odds, or the Force will be with you always.
So, even though I quote, do or do not, there is no try all the time, I'm going with the force will be with you always.
I'm also going with the Force will be with you always. I mean, if I'm just going to get something tattooed on me, it should be that, probably.
Yeah. Okay. And we got our results.
We do.
I'm pretty sure that we got entirely different people based on our answers because
We,
they were all
they
different.
were very different.
Yeah. So I got Finn.
Nice. Do you want
And
to
it's
say what it says?
Yep. Yeah. It says, you're an empathetic, caring person in a time when those qualities are sorely needed. You fight for what you believe is right, no matter the consequences. You're willing to sacrifice everything you have for the well being of those you care about, something not many humans or droids can say about themselves.
Nice.
I think that's kind of fitting. I'm
Yeah.
good with that.
I got Poe Dameron.
That's also fitting. What does it say?
You're a badass, plain and simple.
You
Cool,
wear a black
calm,
vest.
and collected. You've never once let a bad situation get in the way of your success. Also, you're one hell of a pilot. Couldn't be more accurate than that. So,
Well, there you go. Everybody, thank you very much for joining us for our last Jedi, discussion, really. And
yeah.
overall Star Wars discussion. It was a lot of fun. John, thank you for joining me. It's always a pleasure talking geek with you. So, in the meantime, if other people want to engage you in geekdom, where's the best place to find you?
I just retook the test.
To what? Get someone else?
No, just to see. You know how you always have that like, what if I pick this? You know, like I said, I kind of my initial gut reaction is pick the Millennium Falcon because it's the Millennium Falcon. But then I
Okay.
thought about it and it was like, but X-wings are so cool, and I like kind of the idea of being a fighter pilot and all of that. So I went through and I picked what would be the alternative choices, the alternative reality,
Okay.
and I got Ray.
Oh.
Anyway, I was buying time because I was reading it, and all of a sudden I had a job to do, and I was like, well, if I talk about this, I can get away with what I was doing instead of paying attention, and now I can do the other things that I got to do.
Oh, okay. Well, good. That's good. It's good that you did that, John. So where can people find you?
If you want to hear more from me, you can follow me on Twitter at John_Jagger. You can also catch me talking about Heroes of the Storm on Core,
Core.
which is part of the Frog Pants Network, and you can find out more about that at heroesforyou.com. Ben,
Yes, John.
where can people find you?
I also just retook the quiz. I was changing binge watching to the date with an intergalactic bay because I like taking never ending out. And I got Ray. So apparently that's the key to get Ray. You need to go out on a date with your bay.
I don't know. That's what I picked the first time and I didn't get it. I didn't pick it the second time and I got Ray. So something's afoot.
Maybe it's that and the combination of the Millennium Falcon. I don't know. Anyways, the best place to find me is on Twitter. I'm at Ben the Mage. I do a show with Luder called Battle Pets, where we talk about battle pets in the world of Warcraft. This show, however, Azeroth Roundtable, you can find us on Twitter. We are at AzerothRT. Questions, comments. If you want to tell us what you thought about the movie, or if you thought that we're crazy for liking it or whatever, you can send those emails to AzerothRoundtable@gmail.com. And of course, all of our episodes are found on AzerothRoundtable.com, on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Alpha Geek Radio, a bunch of other places. First of all, it has been a tremendous year, John. And I just think that I want to give a shout out to everybody who supported us over this year, and even more so, happy holidays to all of our fans. You guys are seriously the best that anybody could ask for.
Absolutely 100% agree. Thank you so much. A big shout out to everybody who supports us on Patreon. You're the ones who make this possible. A big thank you to our newest Patreon member, Bagheera.
Yay!
Thank you for your pledge. What's really funny about this, break the fourth wall here, is we're literally recording this right after our last episode, but there's a new patron because it happened between the time that we did that episode and now. So it's really created the illusion better that I just shattered by saying that.
No,
Anyway,
I find it funny. I think that's a good thing to say.
a huge thank you to our Murloc Club, Avarik W, Gary W, Aaron, and Simon. Murloc, thank you to you.
Oh,
Oh, may the force be with you.
yeah, you speak Murloc.
I do. As surprised as you. And as always, patreon.com/AzerothRT if you want to support us. We really appreciate it.
Yep, again, happy holidays from us. Enjoy your time with your family and be good to each other. Bye, everybody.
May the force be with you.
All right. Save project as Art Last Jedi. Cool. Hey, that was fun.
That was fun. It was good. Good
I
times.
kind of want to go see
I
the
should
movie
stop
again.
recording.